So let's almost start with, speaking of normal experiences and people that are relatable. Let's go to Donny Deutsch. He posted this himself. Deutsch. I'll just read from his bio. Author, ad guy, proud father, and dog lover. Now, Donnie, yeah. So he inherited an ad business. Like, think of like one of the kids in Mad Men, and it's like, oh, this, and like the, and it's like, oh, they're gonna live through like the 70s and 80s. I don't know how old Donny Deutsch is. He seems old. But so Donny Deutsch has an opinion about work ethic in America, and here is this. And yeah, I would just sort of say, like, Donny Deutsch, for a guy that's on Joe Scarborough's show all the time, to only have 111,000 followers, buddy. Like, I think your work ethic, your work ethic,
bread and butter.
What's going on with your work ethic, pal? But anyway, here's him just being annoying.
What I see and what I feel is there's something changed in the American psyche of what I'll call just kind of the work ethic. And it's not just the $300 check. I think post-pandemic, people got used to staying at home. CNBC had a thing that they called the Great Resignation, that I think there's something like statistically 92% of Americans said they're either considering change jobs or leave their jobs. And I think that we've gotten a little soft in the pandemic. I love that James Gorman, the head of Morgan Stanley, said to his workers, I'm not going to give you the option. This is a separate issue about people not having jobs. This is about people going back to work. I'm not going to give you the option of coming back to work. If you feel okay going to a New York City restaurant, you can go back to work. And I'm one of these believers of this new soft attitude of, work from home, flexibility or whatnot. There's something about people going back to work that has to happen. And if I was still running a company today, I would say, guess what? You're coming back to work. So there's two problems. So there are people who don't want.
There's something about people going back to work that has to happen. I mean, I would just also question, like, is Donny Deutsch, are you invested in any commercial real estate?
Yeah.
Like this whole like go back to work thing. But I don't know. What's your reaction to that, David?
I mean, super out of touch guy in New York City. It's not the most surprising thing in the world, but it's so funny to see this kind of juxtaposition that you're getting even from, I mean, I guess Joe's like, liberal curious now at MSNBC. But Joe Scarborough.
Well, that's because of Trump or whatever, but yeah.
It's funny to see like these early job reports and like all these indicators that the economy is booming, just in the kind of like metrics that people like that care about, right? And they're getting worked up about, everybody's being self. And what they're really frustrated about is that more and more people are asserting themselves in the workplace. More and more people are recognizing, for maybe a myriad of reasons, maybe having a little bit more money in their pocket, or just the fact that spending a little bit more time at home might have made them realize that, Jesus Christ, I've been subjecting myself, to these assholes who one, don't care about me. And even if they did, this is working for them has become my life. And I actually would prefer to have a much richer social life and family life and community life than just spending all my time trying to come up with ad copy for some kind of another orange man from Queens.
What is causing him anxiety right now, to the extent that it exists, is so precious and incredible. We need to nourish it as much as possible. Like, people saying, like, oh, this fucking thing where I go and do this long ass commute to talk to this asshole, like, and the only reason I was doing it because I literally had to, otherwise I would go hungry. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, for a brief moment, I could feel like what that's like to like be able to say, you know what, I don't want that shift. I don't want the shift. I want, and like that, absolutely, like that's organic. It's caused by the predicament we're all under, and it absolutely, like, there's a reason that guys like Donny Deutsch are threatened by it.
I think guys like Donny Deutsch are certainly threatened by that. And also, there are very different experiences of like the COVID pandemic, depending on the kind of work you do and the kind of income that you have. But I do think what worries people like Joe and Donnie here is that, the part of the American working class that make significantly more than the vast majority of it. But remember, they still sell their labor, right? I'm talking the $75,000 a year set, right?
Right.
Those folks who have been for so long sort of told that, like, oh, well, you have your privilege and like you get paid more than other folks and et cetera, et cetera. So you just need to accept, life of servitude to the company and to like all of those, and having no social life and feeling that it's your responsibility to stay at the office till 11 p.m. A lot of those people are starting to push back, and you're seeing, a proliferation of unions, or at least union activity from a lot of firms, in these kind of big metropolitan areas, people who make more money, who you don't traditionally think of as people who would start agitating for things like that. And I think it's very worrying to those folks because, look, while, income wise, these are very different struggles than when we were talking about what's happening in Bessemer or, what's happening with the boys at the folks at Warrior Met, right? The bosses still extract extreme amounts of value from those white collar employees, and they don't want people to start asking for their fair share of the money that they create either, right? And there is a worrying moment that as you start to see a little bit more, the thing is, like, we don't have the organization yet, but you're starting to see a little bit of a rupture in like the kind of American psyche and its relationship towards work in a way that I think probably does worry people who benefit from the system of like hyper exploitation, including of like white collar, more higher income workers as well.
Yeah. And it's not just those higher income workers getting a bigger and bigger share of the profits. It's also them asserting the priorities of the company. And like, it's not just going to be the investors in the C-suite. That would be a huge change. And there's a reason people are like Dave Rubin. I keep hearing him talk about like the thing about CRT that you really need to be afraid of is they're bringing it to the boardrooms. And like, and he's speaking to a very specific type of person with that. And it's not, workers, right? He's like, the reason that guys like this, cruise with like big money coming in us on like through streams is because they speak to like the C-class executive that wants to keep cracking the whip. I mean, I got a little bit.
No, I mean, and I think, as leftists and socialists, it's like, continue pushing like those contradictions and that kind of consciousness, because the thing is, like, this could blow over, right? But what they're seeing right now is like this kind of mass realization that work sucks, and it like sucks for all of us, and like a big part of the reason is pay, but it's also the expectation and the work from home situation for a lot of folks has brought all these extremely frightening examples. We're starting to see reports of people finding out that their employers are saying that they have the right to access people's home offices, your house, right? That's insane. And that's something that nobody should accept from their employer, right? And I think as people start to realize that, well, it's insane that they feel like they have the right to go through my work computer even, or my personal belongings when I'm at work, all that kind of stuff. Like those kind of realizations of, to use the term that I think is important to use, the dictatorship of the bosses, or the dictatorship of like the bourgeoisie, right? Like, to understand that that's the terrain that we're on, and we're trying to push back and to create something very, very different. I don't know. I see like in this moment, like, a lot of like potential people recognizing the absurdity of their positions, while people are probably happy that like some of the pandemic restrictions are being lifted, right? That's a good thing. But also saying, okay, well, I don't know if I want to go back to the old way of things after sort of having an experience that sort of took me out of that, at least mentally, for a period of time.
There are so many people I know personally, and that at the start of this pandemic, when it was unclear how severe it was going to be, and I'll remind people that nearly up to 1 million people have perished in this country alone on it, so rather severe it turned out being, went into jobs when things were uncertain about what this meant for them, that would fire them 2 weeks later. And basically, like, there was a massive you know, and like I think people realize that, like this thing, like, and yeah, I don't have more to say other than like I think this is a very important tendency that I'm noticing. Like I'm noticing even in North Dakota, I saw somebody complain about. It was a mask complaint, but if you look a little bit closer, it was this person saying, "Yeah, sorry, I don't want to go into work to fucking wherever because I don't want to get yelled at about masks." Right? Like,
Yeah.
And it's like to wear a mask. Like I got the vaccine. Like don't tell me to wear a mask. Like that sort of thing. Right? This job isn't fucking worth it to me. Ultimately, that's what I hear out of that. And ultimately that's why you didn't see $2,000. You saw 1,400. Because we've come to this pandemic brought us to this place where we realized that, we could provide everyone's needs. Like nobody needs to be materially put out at all. We could just say you're good and we're going to provide food for you. But the small business tyrant class, and they're business tyrant class generally, not just small business, but that's who the message is about. That's what, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about with Fauci and how he's like a little deep state gremlin going back to AIDS. You never hear about any of that because all the fire on Fauci is aimed towards getting people back to work for their capitalist boss. So like, and it's just clear who gets to elaborate the complaints here.
That's a great point.
Man, fucking Donny Deutsch. Okay.